Hi, I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
Morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. So I want you to think for a moment and answer this question. What was the happiest and most fun time of your life? What are your proverbial good old days? What was a time where you felt most alive and passionate and excited? Was it in your childhood? Was it in high school? Was it college? Was it your first love, your best friend? You know, one of my favorites is growing up. I was one of 10 kids, youngest boy, spoiled. Number 8 kid out of 10. And it was really fun growing up in a large, loving family. We were close. We always had fun. It's not we didn't have dysfunction. Sometimes I think we had more dysfunction because there's so many of us. And some of it was deep fried. It was quite a lot. But we didn't let it stop us from having fun. My sister always has that line, the Maraj is, we put the fun in dysfunctional. And so, and I loved family dinners together every night. I mean, I loved summers. I loved Christmas. I loved when our cousins came to visit. We were like the Kool-Aid house. Everybody played at our house, and that was really nice. I loved high school. I had some trauma around reading out loud. I loved sports. I was a high jumper, basketball player, volleyball player. First time I high jumped over my own height was like one of the most wonderful memories. I delivered pizza. I was a dishwasher, a Fuller Brush salesman. I mowed lawns at the Hamilton Cemetery. And one of my favorites, I enjoyed being a busboy. I was a busboy at the Keg restaurants. You hear the Keg? You know those restaurants like sing you happy birthday when it's your birthday, a whole group of them, and they sing some goofy song. So this one night, and we did that pretty regularly, there were usually 6 or 8, and it was kind of easy being a part of a group. The place was really busy, and they called for people, and there was only me and the manager named Rob, and there was only a couple, and it's his birthday. And the restaurant's loud, so we have to kind of sing loud for them to hear. And at first the guy's looking at us, then he drops his head as we're singing happy birthday. And at first I'm thinking he's embarrassed, because you know when people get embarrassed because they're getting that kind of attention. I think he was embarrassed for us, for how bad we were sounding. It was such a horrible experience. I think we were all praying, oh God, please let this end fast. It was horrible. I was so embarrassed, and I was praying, God, let this never happen to me again. So interestingly, another highlight was that our coach got a trip for us to fly through Sports Canada to travel around and play basketball in Victoria, British Columbia. And so we were on a bus all the time. We got billeted. I stayed at this girl Kathy's house and her family. And on the bus, this guy had this boom box, and it was a time when Queen had the hit, Another One Bites the Dust. But the guy played on the boom box was Weird Al Yankovic's parody, which was called Another One Rides the Bus. And we're on a bus, and so I happen to have the words memorized, so I start singing the song. I don't know if you remember, but the opening lines were, riding on a bus on a boulevard, and the place was pretty packed. Couldn't find a seat, so I had to stand with the perverts in the back. This is boom, 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 another one rides the bus, boom, 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 another one rides the bus. So we did this multiple times in this week, at least a couple times a day. And so it was time to leave, and it was fun. And the lady, Kathy's mom, the person I billeted, actually gave me a card, and I read it on the plane, and she was thanking me because she said her daughter had been depressed for a long time and hadn't been happy, and me being there visiting them was the happiest it'd been. And it was such a joy, because the first time in my life, it was like, wow, you help somebody attitudinally or whatever. It was just like a really cool. I just never forgot that experience. So we get back to Hamilton. Everything is kind of cool. And then there's a Christmas concert coming up where anybody could apply and perform. And so one of the guys on the team said, hey, let's do Another One Rides the Bus in front of the whole school. And we can do it with a live band. And of course, I was supposed to be the lead singer. So we did this. There's one rehearsal with the band. It was kind of weird singing with a live band and a mic check. So on the day of, It's high school, so please. The guys thought, let's meet at the park at 8 o'clock in the morning in winter, and let's get some liquid courage in us. I mean, it was so ridiculous. And then we go to the performance, and we're all nervous, and I was particularly, my heart's pounding. So we get out there, and then the stage guy says, sing into mic 3. So we get out there. I don't know which one's mic 3. And then they start in the beat, and I totally missed coming in. I mistimed it, and it was really awkward. And I didn't realize I'm singing into a mic that isn't working. Thank God. And the rest of the basketball players, it was me and then them as the backup singers, they got thrown off. So I'm the only one singing Another One Rides the Bus. So I messed up so bad. I turned. I said, I really screwed. I was saying to the band, I really screwed up. Can we do it over again? Well, that was mic 3. And so it was so horrible. It was so horrible. After it, I kept thinking, oh, God, how do I get out of that auditorium with no one seeing me? And I was thinking, if I could, it'll be Christmas, and so they'll forget by the time New Year's comes. But anyway, it was a horrible experience. But it's funny, whenever I look back on it, I was so glad I did it. I thought it was the coolest thing. And even though I stunk, I felt like at least I had the courage to try. And those are part of the days that I just really loved it. I loved high school, and I absolutely loved growing up. It wasn't perfect, but I really, really loved it. So what are some of the great days of your life? What are the ones you look back on, and you were so happy you got to experience those things? Today we are in the 4th of our now 5th week series of the Songs of Life, focusing on the British rock band's music, Queen. And first week we did I Want to Break Free. Second week, Under Pressure. Last week, Somebody to Love. And today we're going to do These Are the Days of Our Lives. It's a beautiful and wonderful song, but the reason I chose it is because it was Freddie Mercury's last video. It was recorded in May of 1991, and he died in November of that year. And he looked weak. Anybody ever see that video of These Are the Days of Our Life? He looked very weak. He had tons of makeup, really, really thin. And it was kind of sad to watch, but it is a beautiful song. And even though the drummer wrote it, even the band members felt like that thing was written for Freddie and what was going on with his life at the time. And I think it's a wonderful song of reflection. I think it is a song of appreciation and celebration. And it's a song that really helps us in how we handle and look back at our past and how we can allow the past to help us live our present in a more fulfilling way. So let's look at some of the lines and see what we could learn to how to deal with our past and how to live more fully in the present. Sometimes I get to feeling I was back in the old days long ago. When we were kids, when we were young, things seemed so perfect, The days were endless, we were crazy, we were young. The sun was always shining, we just lived for fun. I think it's really cool to look back on our past, look back, because sometimes I think we forget how much fun life was. We forget some of the playful and joyful things. We forget some of our old friends. We forget some of those old places. We forget some of the things we did and tried. Looking back, I think sometimes helps us realize how far we have come. It helps us reflect what it was like to be carefree and playful and childlike and joyful, because sometimes I think we forget. Anybody ever pull out an old photo album, you start flicking through the pictures, and you just smile at that funky perm you got, or the bell-bottom pants? There's something really cool about reflecting, because I think it really helps us connect with that childlike spirit. Scripture says, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must become as a child. And there's that playful, joyful nature in all of us that we sometimes forget. And looking back can sometimes help us connect and remember. I think looking back is also good, because sometimes I think it helps us understand ourselves. I think it helps us heal ourselves and feel more connected to our true selves. And then the next line says, sometimes it seems like lately, I just don't know. The rest of my life has just been a show. So in this is saying, those were the days of my life, but these days aren't so great. It's just been a show. It's been kind of empty. And so it's focusing on those days, but not really thinking these days are doing so good. And sometimes when we look back on those days, we always necessarily think those days are better than these days. Anybody ever look back at your life, and I've heard people say things like this, like life was so much better back then. I was just so happy-go-lucky and confident and playful. That was when I was at my best. I was, more successful. I was thinner. I was more active. I had more hair. We have all these things. And in a way, we kind of look back and we start comparing and thinking then, there, and then was better. Anybody ever had somebody tell a fishing story, and over the years, the fish gets bigger and bigger? It gets more challenging and dramatic. Sometimes we look back on our first love, the first guy we fell in love with, and it's like he was like so perfect. He gets more perfect. And almost like when we focus on those images and makes the past better, it actually makes us sometimes feel a little diminished in the present. You know, and sometimes we tend to look back on the past when today ain't so good. When we're struggling with our lives, looking back thinking that my life just didn't turn out the way I was hoping. Or regretting, I wish I missed, we missed that opportunity. And I wish I'd went to college. You know, I wish I'd really followed my own passion and rather than listening to what my family said. It's in those times when we feel down now, we make the past even greater and brighter, which makes us actually feel a little not so good now. And so sometimes we need to look at how we look at our past and what are healthy ways to look at our past and what are not healthy ways. You know, in the scripture, it has 3 things that tell us about don't look back. The first one is Lot and Lot's wife. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah burning and the instruction? Don't look back. What does she do? She looks back and becomes a pillar of salt. See, when we look back, it stops us and we stay stuck and we're not able to move forward. Another one, it says, no one who puts their hands to a plowshare and looks back is fit for the kingdom of heaven. Well, a plowshare, when you're trying to plant seeds, is that if you look back, it throws you off and your seed doesn't land in good soil, so it affects and limits the quality of your harvest. Looking back affects the quality of our harvest. You know, and the last one is from Philippians. It says, forgetting what is behind and straining to what is ahead, I press on towards the goal to win the prize for which I've been called heavenward in Christ Jesus. And it says, forget what's behind you. That if you keep looking back, you will rob yourself of the prize and the gift and that heavenly experience. And so it's really important because when we look back, 3 unhealthy ways is when you look back and you make that good old days so much better than now that it affects our now. Another way is to look back and just keep blaming everybody for how our lives aren't good and explaining why now isn't good. And the other one is just trying to escape and fantasize. That those are not the ways. So we tend to hold on to the past and look back on the past in such healthy ways it robs us of our now. It robs us of our present. It robs us of living a fuller life. So where in your life are you looking back? Where in your life you're still idealizing something that is actually impacting your fulfillment now, or blaming or holding some resentment towards someone that's robbing us now? You know, the next words say, those days are all gone now. Those days are all gone now. Sometimes we have trouble with days that are gone and things that are gone because we have a hard time letting go. And we have a hard time saying goodbye. We have a hard time with endings. And in a nutshell, the reason they're endings and letting go is because life is about change. Things always change. Every time there's change, there's an ending. Every time there's change, there is something that needs to be let go. And most of us have a difficult time with change. We don't like change. It makes us feel uncomfortable. It makes us feel vulnerable. It makes us feel scared. It makes us feel alone. You know, there's some changes that we handle well in life, but there are other ones that we absolutely struggle with. We always say we want change, but when it comes time to actual change, it scares us greatly, and it's not easy for us. We resist change. We have a hard time with change. How many people would say you ever resisted change or have had a hard time dealing with some change in your life? Okay. More than 4? Yes. Thank you. So not handling change well kind of reminds me of, like Kentucky Fried Chicken. The sales were really low for 3 months, so Colonel Sanders decided to phone the Pope. And he said, hey, Pope, can you do me a favor? And the Pope said, well, what can I do? Colonel Sanders said, Holy Father, I need you to change the daily word prayer from give us this day our daily bread to give us this day our daily chicken. And if you do that for me, if you make that change for me, I swear I will donate $10 million to the Vatican. And the Pope said, I'm really sorry, but that's the Lord's Prayer. I just can't change it to something else. I can't change the words. So the colonel was disappointed and he hung up. After a month, again, lousy sales at KFC, the colonel called the Pope again and said, listen, Your Excellency, I really need your help. I will donate $50 million if you would change the words from the prayer to give us this day our daily bread to give us this day our daily chicken. And the Pope said, it's very tempting, Colonel Sanders, very, very tempting. The church could do a lot with that money. A lot of charities could be served, a lot of people blessed. But again, I must decline. It's the Lord's Prayer, and I can't change the words. So the colonel again hung up the phone, and 2 months later, after bad sales again, calls desperately and says, this is my final offer, Your Excellency. If you change the words from give us this day our daily bread to give us this day our daily chicken, I will donate $100 million to the Vatican. And the Pope said, let me get back to you. And so the next day, the Pope calls together all of his bishops, and he said, I got some good news, I got some bad news. The good news is that KFC is going to donate $100 million to the Vatican. And then the bishops rejoice, and one of them says, hey, what's the bad news? And the Pope says, the bad news is we lost the Wonder Bread account. A lot of applause. That's a change. You know what's funny is like from the time we're born to the time we die, we're changing. Our bodies change. Our minds are changed by all we learn. Our beliefs, our attitudes, so much changes. Relationships change. And yet we struggle with change. It is the keynote and cornerstone and only constant in life. Yet we have trouble on when those days are gone, when things have shifted and changed. And we resist change so much that we would rather stay the same even if it keeps us stuck, even if it keeps us reliving the same unfulfilling experiences, that sometimes we would let ourselves stagnant than actually change. We think change is bad or wrong, but it's not bad or wrong. In fact, it's good. The thing about change we don't like, it's hard. Because change calls us to think in a different way, to show up in a different way, to react in a different way, and to think in a way we hadn't allowed ourselves to do. You know, change disorients us. We have to reorient, readjust, relearn. But it helps us expand our consciousness, expand our thinking, expand our way of living. We think change is a bad thing. No, it's a vital part of living. Change keeps us alive. It keeps us engaged and energized and joyful and always looking and opening ourselves to something greater and better. Ernest Holmes, who was a founder of Science of Mind, thanks. And he said something like, life will not leave you in the same place for too long. That it will leave you there long enough for you to learn what you came to learn, heal what you came to lean, share what you came to share, and then it would be time to move on. See, the fact is that the universe loves us so much that it is there to facilitate our soul growth and expansion. The human self wants to stay safe, doesn't want to change, nothing different, but the soul wants to expand. And the universe loves us so much that if we don't pay attention, it will get our attention and it will help us. But we don't need to have it forced. We just need to be willing to open ourselves to this level of change, because change is a vital and important and a beneficial part of life. We shouldn't resist it, and we shouldn't think it's bad or if it's a curse. So I ask you, what change in your life are you resisting? What change in your life are you struggling with or denying or don't want to do? Yes, it's hard, but it's an important part of moving yourself to that next level, of transforming your life, of changing your life, of expanding your experiences and your success and your happiness. Let's go a little further. And it says, next time, sometimes it seems like lately, I don't know, I guess it's best to sit back and go with the flow. And so what this is saying is with those changes, sometimes you got to stop fighting it and find some level of acceptance. It's not there to make your life worse. It's actually there to make your life better. And one of the ones we always fight is getting older. You know, we really hate getting older. But you know what I think is really good about getting older? The single greatest thing I think getting older does, it gives us perspective. It gives us some insight and wisdom and understanding about ourselves, understanding about life and relationships and how to handle things. I think getting older helps us not judge ourselves and others, not judge life, not be so rigid and not be so strict. I think there's an openness that acceptance brings to us. And you know what that does? It helps us have a deeper and a richer experience right now. We become more aware. We become more willing to feel. We have a more whole experience of life. I'll give you an example. So my dad died 26 years ago, and in the last 6 months, my father's popped into my head more than the previous 20 years. I have no idea why. So you're hearing a lot more stories, and that's because it's been coming up. And one of the things that popped into my head was I remember my dad died at 59. At 57, he was diagnosed with 3 things: diabetes, chronic obstructive lung disease, and chronic heart failure. I mean, he had the triple crown. And so the doctors said he'd only live 2 more years, and the doctor and my mom decided not to tell him, because then my dad would have worried himself to death rather than die of the other things. But over time, when you're dying, you figure it out. And so about 5 or 6 months before my dad died, I'm standing in the kitchen, and there was a hallway door that led into my parents' bedroom, and their bedroom door is open. And I look, and I see my mom and dad hugging, and they're just crying. They're just weeping in each other's arms, because we never really talked about this at all. And so they're crying, and it's like they're coming to terms with the fact that my father's dying, that their relationship after this 40-something years was coming to an end. And it was really heartbreaking to watch that. It was really painful seeing them cry, painful. And then I kept watching the same scene. And I see crying, but I also see comforting and cherishing and caressing and caring. I see them almost acknowledging what a beautiful life and relationship they've had, what they've created together. I mean, it's funny. It went from like sadness to like something sacred. It went from painful to beautiful. It went from, unhappy picture to a precious moment. And it's the same thing. And sometimes that's how life is. It's like when you look at it, we sometimes want to label it bad right off the bat, but God is always there. Good is always there. Possibilities are always there. Life isn't easy. I'm not saying that there isn't tragedies. I'm not saying that there isn't pain. But I'm saying there's more fullness, as we connect and as we accept. And because you have a more whole experience. Because it was his illness that brought those tears, and it brought them to that tender moment. It is those things that push us in ways that also bring some beauty as well. Watching the video of Freddie Mercury, I found sad. I even watched it again last night, was brought to tears. But it's inspiring and beautiful. And for some reason, I just really connect with him. I don't know why. I didn't know that he was Indian. Like, parents born in Bombay, like, I look more like his parents' kid than he does. And so it's just like, I'm not sure why there's connection. Maybe because we're both Indian rock stars. I'm not sure. But so here's this thing, and there's a lot besides his music, which was powerful and clearly we all love. But I wondered about his personal struggle, literally being an Indian kid with buck teeth and being laughed at a lot, being gay in a culture and in a place where it wasn't accepted. And yet, at the same time, he knew he was born to perform and didn't let that stop him from being himself. He was flamboyantly amazing and talented, and he let that spirit out while still struggling with some of his personal stuff that he never, ever, ever shared. And I found it amazing that when he was dying, he said to his bandmates, "No feeling sorry for me, no talking about this, let's just keep playing music." That right up to the end, he didn't let dying stop him from pursuing his passion, from doing the thing he felt that he was born to do. And to me, that is hugely inspiring. Looking again at the same picture, it's sad, it's heartbreaking, and it's beautiful all at the same time. So I ask you, what area in your life that isn't so pretty, that are you willing to look at it and keep looking at it and realize that it is beautiful and it's painful? And there's a richness and a fullness of life that comes when we liberate ourselves and allow ourselves, to feel those types of experiences. I think life wants to reveal so much to us and through us, but we have to be willing to be accepting and fully open and present. Then we'll see more and feel more and experience more. Final lines. Those days are all gone now, but one thing is true. When I look and I find, I still love you. I always wondered, what does that mean? The people that you were with, you still love them after all? And that's cool. Your family, your friends, the rock band. But then I go a little deeper. Maybe the I still love you is that even though he's dying, he still loves life. Even though he's dying, he still loves music. Even though he's debilitated to not do it, he still loves singing. He still loves, his experience, his struggles. He still loves his creativity. He still loves all of the things that make life great. Because we all have excuses to give up and not like it and keep loving our lives, but that's the beauty, is keep loving it. I still love my life. Life is a great gift. It is blessed, it is amazing, it's miraculous, and it is painful, and it is challenging, and it's excruciating. Life is really the full meal deal. We sometimes only want the flowers and chocolates part of it, but life is the full meal deal. The question is, are we open to it to feel more of the fullness? I bet we've all held back in some ways. Held back from trying, held back from loving, held back from something. And life is calling us. It's saying those are the days of our lives, but guess what? These are the days, because life is now. Life is always a miracle. In this moment, there are possibilities to love and share and forgive. There are things to create and to experience. Even when there's pain and struggle, it is amazing. Our spirits are eternal, so that should give us freedom to not hold back. And one of the things that I think makes life even more precious is to know that we're all going to run out of time. Our spirits are eternal, but this life is limited. And sometimes that limited amount of time makes it more precious. Bonnie Raitt has a song, Love in the Nick of Time, and it says, life becomes more precious when there's less of it to waste. And so it matters not how much longer we live, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. The most important question is how you living today. How are you living now? Somebody once said the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time? Today. Look to this day. This day. It says, this is the day that the Lord has made, so let us rejoice and be glad in it. If today is the best time to plant that tree, what are we waiting for? What is something you want to do that you haven't done? What's something you want to feel you haven't felt? What's something to create you haven't created? What to have something that you haven't had? Life has changes, and it ain't easy. But those changes are there to help grow us and expand us, and actually not to set us back, but to actually help us live more fully. Life is actually waiting for us to open up and to expand, to step in it, to realize these are the days of our lives. And the best way to make it those days of our lives the best day is how you are living now and how you choose to live today. God bless you all.